Tonight, the global conversation has taken a sharp and unexpected turn as a major Hollywood figure steps forward with one of the strongest public condemnations yet against Israel's ongoing military actions. Actor Guy Pearce, known for acclaimed roles across international cinema, has ignited worldwide debate after declaring he has never been so disgusted in his life, pointing directly at Israel's actions in Gaza and the occupied West Bank. His message, posted publicly and without hesitation, has resonated across millions of screens because it is not only a celebrity statement, but a reflection of growing international outrage. As images of devastation and loss continue to circulate daily, more voices are breaking their silence. Pearce's remarks represent a growing shift. The conflict is no longer confined to geopolitical analysis. It is now deeply intertwined with global culture, public conscience, and accountability. His bold comments force us tonight to confront the question, how long can the world look away? Guy Pearce's post on X did not mince words. He accused the Israeli regime of showing what he described as utter disregard and disdain for Palestinian life, a sentiment that many activists, journalists, and humanitarian workers have echoed for months. What makes Pearce's statement stand out is its emotional directness. He states plainly that he has never felt such disgust toward any group in his lifetime. Attached to his post was a disturbing Al Jazeera clip of a 15-year-old Palestinian boy shot by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank, left without medical assistance until he died. The footage, which has circulated widely, underscores the escalating violence across the region. For Pearce and many others, this incident encapsulates the human cost behind the headlines. Not statistics, not distant reports, but real people, children, whose lives are taken without consequence. His decision to publicly share this video signals a deliberate act of bearing witness. The Israeli regime's intensifying operations in the West Bank began shortly after October 7, 2023, when it launched an all-out assault on Gaza that has since faced accusations of genocide from leading human rights experts. Since then, Israeli forces and armed settlers have killed hundreds of Palestinians in the occupied territory, creating an atmosphere of constant fear. Reports describe villages raided at night, homes destroyed, and increasing mobility restrictions imposed on civilians. In this context, Pearce's condemnation strikes at a moment of heightened scrutiny. His voice joins a growing list of global figures who argue that this is not simply a conflict, but a humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in real time. And while political leaders often speak cautiously, Pearce's blunt honesty has amplified the moral dimension of the crisis for audiences who may not closely follow geopolitical affairs. In Australia, the reaction to the Gaza war has been intense and deeply emotional. Pro-Palestinian demonstrations have become a regular sight in major cities, including Sydney and Melbourne, drawing thousands of people calling for an end to civilian killings and demanding government accountability. Protesters have accused Australian leaders of ignoring the suffering in Gaza by continuing military cooperation with Israel. Despite the scale of public outcry, the Australian government maintained its supply of weapons components to Israel, even as casualty numbers skyrocketed. The tension between public sentiment and government policy has created a national debate unlike anything seen in years. And now, with a public figure of Pearce's stature entering the conversation so forcefully, the pressure on officials may only intensify, especially as more citizens question what role Australia plays in one of the deadliest conflicts of the modern era. Recent leaked documents have added a new layer of controversy. In October, reports revealed that Australia had exported F-35 fighter jet components directly to Israel, bypassing global supply chains and raising alarm among international human rights groups. Critics argue that supplying weapons to a military accused of genocide amounts to complicity, an accusation that carries serious legal and ethical implications. Human rights organizations have long warned that any state contributing material support to Israel risks violating international law, especially as Gaza's death toll climbs toward an unimaginable figure. Nearly 70,000 Palestinians, most of them women and children, have been killed, according to humanitarian monitors. With such staggering numbers, Guy Pearce's words gain even more weight. His statement is not just emotional. It is a reaction to evidence the world can no longer ignore. And tonight, it has become part of a broader reckoning that challenges governments, institutions, and individuals alike. Guy Pearce's intervention has sparked significant debate on social media, where thousands of users have shared, commented, and debated the morality and legality of Israel's actions in Gaza and the West Bank. For many, Pearce's words serve as a clarion call, amplifying voices that have long criticized Western support for Israeli military campaigns. The actor's blunt language, calling Israel's actions shameful and declaring his personal disgust, cuts through the often sanitized language of official statements. Analysts note that celebrity influence in international crises is increasingly shaping public discourse. In this case, Pearce bridges the gap between distant global conflicts and audiences who may not follow news outlets closely, translating complex geopolitical issues into an emotional, human-focused narrative. His message forces the world to reckon with the moral dimension of international policy and with Australia's own role in the crisis. The humanitarian consequences of the conflict have drawn unprecedented international attention. Images and reports from Gaza depict destroyed homes, hospitals overwhelmed with casualties, and children traumatized by relentless bombardment. Pearce highlighted one particularly chilling example: a teenage boy shot by Israeli forces, denied medical treatment, and ultimately killed. Such incidents underscore the severity of the crisis and the ongoing risk faced by civilians, particularly minors. Human rights organizations have repeatedly condemned these actions, citing violations of international law and the Geneva Conventions. Pearce's public condemnation aligns with these assessments, emphasizing that the violence is not isolated but part of a systemic pattern. By sharing the Al Jazeera clip, he put faces to statistics, illustrating the human cost of the conflict and forcing audiences to confront the reality behind headlines and political statements. Western governments, particularly Australia, have faced intensified scrutiny in light of Pearce's statements. Despite the growing humanitarian catastrophe, Australian authorities have continued to supply military equipment to Israel, including fighter jet components and other advanced weaponry. Critics argue that such support implicates Australia in the ongoing violence, making government accountability a central question. Pearce's intervention highlights the tension between public outrage and state policy, exposing a disconnect between citizen sentiment and political action. International observers note that while celebrities cannot enforce policy, their influence can significantly affect public opinion and pressure decision-makers. In this instance, Pearce has catalyzed renewed debate about the ethical responsibilities of states engaged in conflicts abroad, especially when civilian lives hang in the balance. The conflict has also prompted a broader cultural and moral reckoning as artists, actors, and activists increasingly use their platforms to demand accountability. Pearce is not alone, but his prominence and uncompromising language have made headlines worldwide. For many Australians and global citizens alike, his statements underscore the urgency of addressing the crisis. Analysts suggest that the intersection of celebrity influence and international human rights advocacy is redefining how global audiences perceive and respond to humanitarian crises. It also raises critical questions about complicity, the role of governments in foreign conflicts, and the moral responsibility of individuals with public platforms. Pearce's statements serve as a reminder that in a world connected by information and social media, silence is no longer an option, and neither is detachment from the consequences of global conflicts.